Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome back to this Astrology, Human Design, and Gene Keys channel with me, Tan. And today we're going to be looking at Gene Key 31, Human Design Gate 31, which is associated with the zodiac sign of Leo. So if you're new to the Gene Keys, then I would highly recommend that you check out my introduction video that I've made. I'll provide a link to that in the description box below, as well as up above, and see how that feels for you, and then come back and watch this video. I'll also provide a link where you can get your online free Gene Keys profile as well to see if you have this archetype. And maybe you have this in your birth chart even. So I'll tell you how to find that in a little bit later. And I also just want to let you guys know that my art website is now currently available online. It's been launched, and if you are interested in getting a pastel painting print for maybe your wall or your altar, then you can visit my website and see what feels right for you there. As well as if you're interested in getting a birth chart reading, human design, or Gene Keys reading, then head over to my website, tanastrology.com, where you can also get a reading there from me or my team. So I'll provide a link to those websites in the description box below as well. So there's a lot of magic in the description box below. Okay, so let's get into Gene Key 31 with doing an overview as usual, of course. So Gene Key 31 moves from the shadow of arrogance to the gift of leadership to the siddhi of humility. And this Gene Key is from 2 degrees of Leo to 737 degrees of Leo. So you can check if you have this in your human design body graph, in your Gene Keys, and if you have your birth chart in front of you, you want to see, do you have any planets, angles, or points in between 2 to 737 degrees of Leo, then you would also have this archetype there. So the vision key bird totem for this archetype is the bluebird, the life key animal is the lamb, and the fear key underworlds in the shadow frequency is the cockroach. In the codon rings, this Gene Key is located in the ring of no return associated with the amino acid tyrosine. And in the 64 I Ching hexagram, this hexagram is lake over mountain, also called influence, sacred lake atop the mountain peak, receiving the wisdom of the highest good to influence the world below. This is very much a key theme of this Gene Key, and you'll see why as we look further into it. The programming partner of this Gene Key is Gene Key 41, Human Design Gate 41. That's Aquarius energy because Aquarius is opposite to Leo, and I just previously made a video for Gene Key 41. I highly recommend that you check out the video for your programming partner as well. In Human Design, Gate 31 is located in the throat center, and it's connected to Gate 7 in the G center, forming a channel called the channel of facilitation, or the alpha, moving from the shadow of command, the gift of facilitation, to the siddhi of omnipotence. So as with all of our Gene Keys, we want to begin by looking at how this Gene Key plays out in an archetype in nature, specifically to birds. So therefore, we're going to look first at the energies and the archetypes of the bluebird and what that can tell us about this Gene Key. To be honest, when I was looking at this and researching on this archetype of the bluebird, I couldn't really find any significance to why the bluebird would be associated with Gene Key 31 and what was kind of significant about the bluebird, except for the fact that it represents the color blue. So when I looked further into the meaning of the color blue, or just this kind of blue hue, I found that blue is a color that connects us to the higher self and the divine. It connects us and represents harmony, honesty, and security. Now, the interesting thing about the bluebird, or any kind of color that is blue on a bird's feathers, is that birds are never actually blue. When we see blue, it means that the bird is actually not blue. So what is this paradox that I'm talking to you guys about here? So when we see birds and they're yellow and red, they're actually yellow and red in their actual feathers because of the carotenoid pigments that are in their feathers. But when we see birds as being blue, this actually means that they have keratin in their feathers, and keratin doesn't make them blue. It's not like carotenoids. Carotenoids give the red and yellow colors. Keratin doesn't actually give any colors, but when the light wave interacts with keratin, which actually has no colors, it makes us see blue through how the light interacts with keratin. So in a way, this is a little bit like an illusion. Sometimes it's a manipulation. We could even consider it like that. Or maybe it's just influence. So it's actually very deep, this blue color in birds. The bluebird is also considered to be a songbird with one of the most well-developed voice boxes, songbirds out there as well. And because this gene key is associated with the voice and it's located in your throat, so there's something there. All right, so we're going to begin to dig deeper into this gene key by, of course, looking at the shadow frequency here first, which is called arrogance. I mean, this is Leo, so why not associate it with arrogance? This gene key is associated a lot with language, of course, because it's in the throat. It is associated with how we use the skills of language to control and manipulate others when we're in the shadow of arrogance. How we can best manipulate language and words in order to control other people and gain power over them. This is the shadow of arrogance. So animals would choose their alpha of their pack by instinctively feeling into which of the animals have the most alpha genes and then choosing that as alpha of their pack. But human beings, we tend to choose, we can say, leaders that is someone who can best manipulate language, whether we realize it or not. We don't usually choose someone to be our leaders if they're not able to make a good speech, if they don't have a well-developed ability to speak. And so this is sort of the alpha gene for human beings. And there's nothing wrong with choosing a leader in this particular way, but the problem comes when we don't consider the moral characteristics of that person and we just choose them just because they can speak, right? Language is a very important tool that can be used to, like, for example, in the shadow, blind an entire group of people to the truth and locking them in a certain level of frequency. That is the control. Even a small manipulation or misplaced word or sentence can cause people to hurt or harm other people and cause millions of deaths. And religion is one of the examples that I want to use here because although, religious texts have, they're pretty solid in what they've become nowadays, but if you follow these religious texts blindly, that's what you get out of it. Because these religious texts, they've been passed down through hundreds and thousands of years. What are the chances that it has not been manipulated, that there's nothing misplaced there from its original message? The word arrogance here is rooted in your belief that you can use your language and your words as a way to will your way, as a source of willpower for you to control other people. It's this arrogance is this feeling that you have any independent will to control over reality. So I wanted to share this with you guys. When you're looking at somebody that's maybe like a leader or somebody important, and when you just see their picture, or maybe you just see them without you actually hearing them or hearing what they have to say, it's very hard for us to feel that this person is arrogant. But the moment somebody talks, that is the moment you begin to realize if a particular person is arrogant or not by the way that they speak. And there's a man that is very famous out there, and he's sort of like a spiritual leader or something. But whenever I see him, and he appears a lot on YouTube, and whenever I see him, I just turn to another channel because the way that he talks gives this frequency of arrogance. And I don't know if he has this gene key or not, but when they talk, there's way too much certainty and sureness in their ability to change and manipulate and influence anybody and everybody by doing anything that they want to. You will feel it when somebody is speaking from arrogance because there's that energy there, like I just mentioned. And the real source of arrogance comes from actually being disconnected from the divine source. Words that are not rooted in some profound sense of wonder is rooted in arrogance. Words that don't instigate or ignite a certain smile on our faces or some amount of wonder on our faces is coming from that root of arrogance. If your words don't carry some kind of frequency of love behind them, it's coming through the shadow of arrogance. And this is what I mean when I talk about that guy the man that I hear and I'm like, the way he speaks is so arrogant. It's that when he speaks, there's this sense of separateness from nature rather than being a part of nature. Almost like he's better than other people or better than nature itself. Arrogance is then also the addiction to words and language rather than the intention behind certain words and languages. When you live in a closed off world, in your own worlds, and you think that you are able to influence not just people, but the animals, the environment, the universe around you, you're living in a very close mental fabrication. And if you speak from that close mental fabrication, you speak from a place of arrogance. So we can have two types of shadows, the repressed and the reactive, of course. The repressed version of arrogance is called deferring. So this manifests as false humility. Of course, so we have the siddhi of this archetype is called humility. So this is being humble in a pretentious, fake, humble way. And so this is when you kind of just defer your power over to another person because you care too much about what other people think of you. So you don't want to be in a position of leadership. You don't want to have any power, whether it's good or bad. You don't want to have to take any responsibilities because you care too much about what people think. And sometimes you may not even want to be public or to use your power of influence in a positive way at all because you're just afraid of any slight opinions of others or how others will view you. So there's a deep fear that you would appear arrogant. So you give your power away to others and you hide behind the throne. So this false humility is really nothing more than just fear. And the reactive version of arrogance is, of course, the one that we see it and understand it very overtly in the world. And that is when you are being scornful. So this is when you assume yourself to be above other people. You assume your words are able to influence anybody and everybody, even nature. But, there's a deep-seated fear of not being recognized here. That's why you have to assert so much time and energy into being powerful. So the moment that you do get recognition, it never really makes you feel content. You're never quite happy with it. Because in your subconscious, you know that you have been using your words to assert yourself over others, to maybe even manipulate others. And even though people do recognize you, it's coming from a place of them being, feeling like, well, they have to, they're forced to kind of recognize and give you the recognition. And that'll never make you happy. And then in turn, you become scornful of them. And, when you assume yourself as being above others and, kind of manipulating others with your language, you're immediately assuming that the other people are inferior to you. And so if those people that you think are inferior to you are giving you any recognition, you never really feel good about it because it's like, well, they're inferior to me. So it's this kind of like self-undoing energy. And you can be quite disrespectful of others in the reactive shadow here. So let's look at the gift of leadership and how we can turn that arrogance into leadership. So leadership is really the gift of influence. The leadership of the 30th gene key is really not so active. It's not like there's a lot that you have to do as a leader. It's more of a projection, how people see you to be a leader, to be someone that can influence them. And this is something that I found very interesting about what Richard Rudd wrote with regards to the mass consciousness or mass subconsciousness, is that people tend to choose their leaders not so much for like their policies or what they promise to do, although they may think that, but a major part of why we choose certain leaders is actually their style. So you can imagine if there were like two, politicians, they have the same policies. They both have goodwill for their country, for their city. But one of them wears a really like baggy shirt and maybe a baggy pants and looks like they haven't combed their hair in many days. The other one dresses proper, maybe wears a tie or wears a really nice suit, or maybe puts on makeup if it's a woman, and has done their hair. If these two had the same kind of policies, which one would the public choose? They would choose the one that appears to be presentable. There is an element of that there. Not to say that this has to be superficial. This is our subconscious, because when we see somebody who's not dressed well and so on and so forth, we're immediately thinking, okay, they can be making these promises, but maybe they're just lazy, or maybe there is just deep down an inability for them to take care of things because they can't even take care of themselves. And people feel that, if you can speak in a way that touches their heart, because you are attuned to certain trends and style, there is an ability to influence. There's an ability to lead. The gift of leadership is no longer caught up in the fear of what people are going to think of you. The only thing that you care about is that you want to influence people in a good way, and that's more important than caring about what they're going to think of you. So your agenda at this point, if there were to be any agenda, would be to help people break out of the same matrix that you were caught in. That's your influence, and that is the matrix of language, meaning that you can see how there are leaders in the world that is using language to manipulate people, and so you don't want to do that. You want to instead influence people in the right direction, breaking out of that matrix. You are focused on helping to draw people out of any codependent victim patterns that they may have had or been in personal relationships and in all areas of their life. 31st gift has an ability to influence large numbers of people, mainly because they do things at the right time. So if you release a film, a movie, write a book, or speak something in the right era in which that message needs to be heard by the people in that era, this is true influence. And if you have the 31st gift, you can definitely do this with a large group of people. You become the voice of the collective. You are the messengers of our future evolution. So the other gift that you have at this gift of leadership is what is called heart branding. You understand that a brand is an expression, a transmission, and there has to be something there that lies beyond words. You know how to bring out the right brand at the right time in humanity to have the desired influence. Your brand always has this sense of what's coming next and pulling that in and bringing that to the collective. When you speak from a frequency that really influences the collective, although you can be an individual, but you almost like when you are the voice of the collective, you're just an individual, but the frequency in which you speak, they catch the heart of the collective, and they may inspire the collective to release and express a similar voice. And I wanted to use TikTok in this example here, because I think TikTok, when you see the people on TikTok, they are kind of speaking the same kind of frequency. They have a similar message there. They could be talking about completely different things, but you can feel the frequency of the voice that's coming through to them. That's why TikTok is so influential nowadays, because it allows the collective and individuals to become influencers, to become leaders, to influence each other, and raise the frequency of the collective voice and collective understanding together as a collective. I don't know if that's kind of making sense. I hope it does. So let's look at the siddhi of humility and what that is like. And so, like I said, for all my Gene Key videos, I don't want to spend too much time or digging too deep into the siddhi, because the siddhi is a state of being where you've become enlightened. You almost don't have to do anything anymore. It's like when you're just in the gift and you continuously use the gift throughout your life, you will automatically access the siddhi. So Richard Rudd says that humility really has nothing to do with behavior. Humility is not about doing something to be humble. That kind of a humility is the false humility. It's the shadow of arrogance, the repressive shadow of arrogance. So this is so interesting because, like, I don't know about you guys, but like in Asian culture, for example, Like in Thailand, a lot of Asian cultures, we really, really take pride in a humble person, a modest, humble person. And we always say, oh, this person is humble and modest because they do this, this, this. They dress this way. They dress very humbly. They speak in a very humble way. There is a false humility there. And it's so interesting that the whole culture buys into this false humility. It's just a person who is trying to hide themselves because they don't have to take responsibility. They don't have to be in a position of leader, and yet we respect them for that. Richard Rudd says that true humility, when you're in the higher siddhi frequency, is an obliteration of your individuality. The 31st siddhi is humble because it represents non-existence. So if you are still doing something to appear humble, that means that you still care about your individuality. You still care about how you appear to other people. The woman that, especially in Thailand, we always say, oh, I love her because she's so humble. She dresses in such a humble and modest way. She cares way too much about her individuality and how she is seen. So there is a level of arrogance there. So when you're in this true humility frequency, this is when you no longer care about what people think of you. This is when you're truly humble because you yourself as a separate self, this individuality doesn't exist anymore. So why would you care what people think? And of course, this doesn't mean that you don't care, as in you're just going to say something or do something that hurts other people. It's not that kind of not caring, but it's not caring what people are going to think about your state of being in that moment. That doesn't, of course, you should always respect other people, but not to the point where you care about how they see you. If you were truly humble, you wouldn't mind other people thinking you were arrogant. See the irony of this beautiful siddhi? And of course, if you were truly humble and you truly believe in yourself as a leader, you will have this solid sense of, I am a leader because I do want to influence people in a good way. I do want to make the world a better place, and I don't need to prove myself. I don't need to get recognition for that even. And I also don't have to care if people are going against me because I trust that I'm doing something that's truly good for the collective. So it's coming from the deepest part of your heart, knowing that you are doing good. And people may not understand what you're doing at this point. They may go against what you're doing at this point, but you know that what you're doing is better for the future of humanity. Richard Rudd says that true humility arises from the truth that you cannot ever do anything really wrong. And this is probably because we are all one with nature, and whatever plan that the universe or nature has for us right now is what is right for us. The reason why the siddhi here of humility is true humility is because it has no agenda. The moment that you are still doing something in a particular way, you still have an agenda. But when you're doing something from a true place of purity, without having to think about what you're doing or you're saying, and there's just goodness radiating out of you, or there's just purity radiating out of you, there's no agenda there. And the irony here is that it's not, the siddhi of humility is not necessarily caring about freeing people from their illusions. Although it may be able to do that without realizing that it's doing it, you realize that you may not be able to actually influence anyone in the world at all, although you might be without realizing that you're doing it. No matter what you do in your life, you're content to leave the world exactly as it is right now. Nonetheless, you still carry within you a genetic code that allows you to speak, and whenever you speak, you do change the world in some ways without realizing that you're doing it. Because you're speaking right from the cutting edge of consciousness. Richard Rudd says that the 31st siddhi of humility says whatever it must say, knowing that the words come from the collective and go back to the collective. It is not concerned with the effect of its words because it has no concept of words conveying any real meaning. This is truly humble. The oracle is also a symbol and can be associated with humility as well, because it is a voice of the divine, and an oracle speaks from that moment with whatever they download without being attached to what it says or even interested in what it's saying. And yet whatever the oracle is saying is perfect in the way that it's saying it, and it is meaningful, and it has a message there. It has a profound message there. And yet it can be interpreted in so many different ways. So I guess the real beauty of humility here is that you know that whatever you say can be interpreted in many different ways, and you allow for people to interpret whatever you say in the various different ways that they want to interpret it. And that it is right for them, and it is right for nature in whatever time in history they're interpreting your messages. So therefore, the gift of humility is the gift of pure transmission. You use your words to indicate a path that is beyond words. So that is going to be the transmission of Gene Key 31 for you today. And so if you have this Gene Key anywhere in your Gene Keys profile, in your human design, or even your astrology chart, then do comment below and let us know what your experiences have been. If you like this video, then give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. If you already subscribed, then thank you very much for coming along on my astrology, human design, and Gene Key journeys. If you would like to get a lovely little painting print, pastel painting print for your wall or your altar space, then do head over to my art website, tanganzanasun.com. And if you're interested in getting a reading of any type from me or anyone on my beautiful team, then head over to my astrology website, tanastrology.com. Links are all in the description box below. So that's it for today, beautiful souls. I'll be back very soon with another Gene Keys video because we're on a roll with it. And we're going to finish off this series. I'm going to have 64 Gene Keys put up for you guys by the end of a few months. Maybe by the end of like April or somewhere in May, we'll have all of them up. Yeah, let's do that. Let's aim for that. All right, so that's it. Bye.